And from the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 10, verses 15 through 21, holy people and blameless race, wisdom delivered from a nation of oppressors. She entered the soul of a servant of the Lord and withstood dread kings with wonders and signs. She gave to holy people the reward of their labors. She guided them along a marvelous way and became a shelter to them by day and a starry flame through the night. She brought them over the Red Sea and led them through deep waters, but she drowned their enemies and cast them up in the depths of the sea. Therefore the righteous plundered the ungodly. They sang hymns, O Lord, to your holy name, and praised with one accord your defending hand. For wisdom opened the mouths of those who were mute, and made the tongues of infants speak clearly.
Reading from the New Testament comes from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and have come to pay homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler, who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then again opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Well, first things first, as they say back in Japan this time of year, anybody feeling the post-New Year's, post-Christmas hangover? Yeah. But I'm not talking about the booze, maybe that too, but just all the festivities and all the things that come with it and all the things that we're going to do. And okay, we're all geared up for the new year and we've got all of our resolutions in hand and we're ready to do this thing. This year is going to be different. Anybody feel 4 days into it that they've already fallen on their face a couple times? I'll consider that laughter a word of assent. Dan Harris, who is an ABC News anchor, came up to the ranks from Maine. He was working for a very small news station out in rural Maine. And he worked hard, and at a very young age, in his 20s, was actually called up to Maine ABC News in New York and was working with Peter Jennings, writing stories, going out and doing different assignments and projects. And he eventually got himself on a nightline and had some spots on Good Morning America, had a number of segments on some big news programs. But he had this thing where he was always chasing something. It was usually some type of, not so much a contention as working against everybody else, competition. Right? Always competing so that he could be the best. Because see, in the news world, you get your chops by getting more and more airtime, right? And so when other people are getting more airtime than you sometimes find ways to sabotage them or to go over their head and tell the bosses why you should be the one getting that airtime. Or you go on these projects that are difficult, but you try to put together a good story so you can build a name for yourself because the people in the back rooms talk. this guy or this gal's not very good. You don't put them on the air. So word gets around. So you really want to bust your behind and do a good job so that you can work your way to the top. And sometimes that means you got to step on a few people on the way there. And he kept doing this all the while he's chasing something that was completely furtive, something that he couldn't quite get his hands around. I mean, there was something behind his competition. There was some type of a sense of accomplishment, or a sense of, okay, I finally found it, or I finally accomplished it. But he could never really quite get there. He tried all of these different things, all of the backbiting, all of the bickering, all of the moaning and groaning. He even turned to drugs. He was snorting coke and taking ecstasy for these quick highs. But he found that the lows right after the highs were much worse than the lows before. See, because as quickly and as much as you go up, that's how quick and as much, or more so, that you go down when the high is over. And so he was beating his head against the wall, working and working against himself, against everybody else, so that he could try to feel some feeling of success, some feeling of accomplishment. He had been assigned by Peter Jennings to cover religion. That was his newest assignment. He had no interest whatsoever. A self-avowed atheist, he had no interest whatsoever in learning about religion, and there was no good that could do him. And certainly, it would, in fact, most likely hold him back, because who cares about religion anyway? So if he's not out there covering the important stuff, see, he'd just come back from doing 5 months in Iraq covering the war. He'd been in Afghanistan. He'd been to all these important places. And now he's got to cover religion. It's like a slap in the face. And so with all of this stress, all of this anger, he's covering his segment on the news, and he's sitting there, and the camera's on him, and he starts talking, and then nothing. Nothing will come out. He's frozen. He doesn't know if he's scared or if he's having a heart attack or what's happening, but he just can't talk. He can't barely breathe. It's like, oh my God, these people are all looking at me here in the studio. All of the people on the other side of the camera are seeing me just freeze up like an idiot. I can't even move. I'm frozen. Finally, he could say the words, let's go back to Diane, even though Diane Sawyer wasn't even here that night. People came to him and said, what's wrong? Are you okay? He says, oh, I have no idea. I'm fine. He knew he wasn't fine. He finally went to a psychologist and got some help. But the story doesn't end there. And we'll continue that on in a little bit. But where does that fit all of us into this equation? Are we not like him? Not so much with the drugs, but maybe searching, trying to find something that is never completely satisfactory. We can never quite achieve what we're looking for. It's kind of, was it you two who said, I still haven't found what I'm looking for? Right? It's just like that. We're always in search for something that doesn't seem to be ours, trying to get somewhere, but never really fully present where we're at. I'm always thinking of the next thing I have to do. When I'm eating, I'm looking for the next bite while I'm chewing on the one in my mouth. How many times do we just sit there and be present with the moment that we're in, realizing the fact that I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm chewing, I'm watching, I'm doing. But always we're trying to go on to the next thing because we're not satisfied, and especially during the holidays, because as Christmas is around the corner, I can't wait for Christmas. I'm going to see family and friends. It's going to be a joyous and good, fun time, and then we have it, and it's over, and we all feel bummed, because that which we've been looking forward to for such a long time is done. We've got to wait another 364 days for it. Same thing with New Year's. I'm going to go out and celebrate with my friends, but once it's done, I realize, yeah, it's done. Nothing else to look forward to for a while. And all those resolutions that I set, I'm never going to achieve them unless I really work, and I don't feel like working. So I feel down. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start reaching for something else to bring me up. We just keep doing this. drawing at straws, grabbing, reaching, but never really getting a grip or a hold of anything else. Einstein said that the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Then we're all insane. You can check us into the Rubber Room Hotel right now because we are all certifiable. Because we all do it. We all, every year, every day, are doing the same things over and over again, expecting that something different is going to happen. But what does it take for us to realize that the results are always going to be the same if we do things the same way? It takes tragedy. It takes disaster. It takes something to disturb us from our place, right? Whether it's a job loss, some type of a financial situation, the loss of a loved one. Something to shake us and stir us to say, you know what? I can't do it this way anymore. And it kind of has an effect of breaking our attachments, right? As we're gripping on to what we think is reality, it kind of breaks us loose, frees us from our norms. Right? So we're able to try something different. But unfortunately, it usually takes something pretty darn bad to get us to that situation. So here are the wise men. These most likely Zoroastrian magi from the east, probably coming from Persia, seeing this star, following it for some reason that they don't quite understand. Yes, the Jews were in exile over there, so maybe they heard the stories of this Messiah that was supposed to be coming. Maybe they wanted to go check it out. Maybe it was something else. Something inside them that drew them to go and find this baby. But on the way, in their wisdom or lack thereof, they stop and see Herod. Herod, who was always insecure, always paranoid, always trying to reach out and lash out and get a hold of something that's not there, something that's not his to have. And when they go to him, they set everything in motion. Because his paranoia really kicks in when he hears that there's a new king in town. He takes it that way. He's only thinking one way. He's thinking about power. Somebody is threatening my power, and so I have to go out and kill every boy who's 4 years old and under. What good is that? Luckily, the Magi get out of there, and they go and they find this king, and they pay him homage. But then, wisdom kicks in. We got to go home another way. We're always trying to get home, whatever home is. This place, not necessarily a physical location, but this place within that tells us, I'm there. I can finally be at peace now. I can finally be satisfied. I can finally relax and be at rest. Call it our spiritual home. Call it our center of our being. We're always in pursuit of it. We're always trying to go there by the same road every time. But yet we're surprised when we don't get there. We're surprised when we're disappointed. We're surprised when we're still stressed out at the end of the day, wondering, what the heck have I been doing with my time? It doesn't seem to add up. It just doesn't seem to make any sense to us because we've been working so hard, so frantically, doing and doing and doing. But we still haven't gotten there. Why? Because sometimes we have to listen to that fear, just like the Magi had, that they knew that Herod wanted their heads. Right? He was going to take the info from them, find out where this kid was, and off him. They knew it. They went home by another way. We have to listen to those signs. We have to pay attention to our lives. We have to pay attention to the things happening around us to guide us home by another way. Not doing the same things over and over again. Because that star in the east that they saw, we all have these stars in the east that guide us. Sometimes we won't just be present enough to have the wisdom to interpret that star in the east. We look at it, we notice it, but we don't know how to interpret it because we don't just let ourselves be. So what happened to Dan Harris? He was talking to people about religion, of course, interviewing people like Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle and people like that, and then started getting word from his friends and psychiatrists and people, you need to go see this guy, Joseph Goldstein. He's Jewish, but he's a master of meditation and mindfulness and all this. In fact, jokingly, there was this group of Jews that called themselves the Jews. Jewish Buddhists or something like that. And he talked to another friend about a week later about the same issue. And they said, you know what? I went to this retreat, this guy named Joseph Goldstein. He's like, oh my God, this guy again. 2 people telling me I need to go see this guy. 2 people telling me I need to go on one of these mindfulness retreats. Now he thought that sounded like the worst thing ever. 10 days of silence. 10 days of sitting there meditating. Oh, and yes, he was very cynical about it. He went. But every time his words, not mine, these granola, whatever, people would get up there and say, let's concentrate and be more mindful. He'd say, he'd stretch out the last word. It would drive him crazy. He hated it. His back was hurting, his knees were hurting. He was sitting there trying to focus while saliva gathers in his mouth, and he's trying not to swallow so he's not disturbing anybody. Oh my God, when is this going to end? 10 days. Back aches and knee aches. Doesn't sound like fun to me either. But he went to this woman that he was annoyed by because of the way she said everything so mindfully, so blissfully. And he went to her and he said, I don't get it. I'm trying this, nothing has happened. I still feel the same way I did when I got here, and worse because I hurt like heck. She says, you're trying to. You have something in your mind that you're trying to achieve, but that's not really what you're supposed to be trying to achieve. Let it go. Let what happens happen. And so, instead of sitting with the people there in the meditation hall, he takes a chair, puts it out on the balcony while they're in there meditating, and he just does his own meditation there, noticing the birds and the trees and the hummingbird that flies near him. And something happens. All of these thoughts that are bombarding him and keeping him from being able to focus and meditate, suddenly he's aware of them, and they all meld together, and then they're gone. And he realizes that there's this thing called impermanence. All of our thoughts and who we are just fleeting. For that moment, he's able to be in peace. And so, when his time comes, because each student, each meditator gets to go see the master, right, the sensei, and talk with them for an hour. So when it's his turn to go see Goldstein, he's excited. He's going to go in there and tell him, I did it, I'm enlightened. Even though the next day when he tried it again, nothing happened. He fell flat on his face. I did it. Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody eventually gets there for a little bit. Talk about bursting the balloon. But the next day I fell flat on my face. Yeah, that's typically what happens too. So he realized he wasn't any different than any of the other practitioners there. He said, "No, what is this all about? Why am I here wasting my time if these moments are going to come and then be so fleeting and go away? I'm not going to be able to maintain the mindfulness." No, you will. You will. But it's going to take a lot of time. A lot of time and a lot of practice. It's like a musician playing scales. Just like an athlete practicing. And he says, well, you can say that so easily, like nothing matters, but what's going to happen when I leave here and my flight is delayed, and I'm kicked off, and I'm running around trying to book a new flight and all this stuff? Goldstein laughed. He says, yeah, you'll do that. You'll run around, you'll be ticked off, you'll be trying to find another way, until finally that question hits you. Is it useful? Is it useful? That's what we have to ask ourselves. When we're running around like a chicken with its head cut off, when we're frantic trying to get from A to B because we think the end of the rainbow is some sense of fulfillment, even though there's nothing there waiting for us but disappointment, we have to stop and say, I've been riding across this airport 17 times back from United to American to Delta trying to book a flight back to Chicago, and I'm driving myself crazy. Who cares? I'm going to get home late. Fine. I can wait. Is it useful? I'm banging the way out in the career. I'm stepping on people. I'm doing whatever I can. I'm searching for some sort of happiness and fulfillment. I've got a relationship that I think this person is supposed to make me happy. It's your job. We're in a relationship. You have to make me happy. Really? Is it useful? When we can ask ourselves that, when we can realize what's useful and what isn't, we, like the Magi, can see our star and understand what it means and where it is finally that we're supposed to be going. And you know what? We'll probably even know how to get there. Because then we can finally relax, we can smile, and we can head home by another way.